Loveless, written by Alice Oseman and read by Holly Grove. Part 1. Last Chance. There were literally 3 separate couples sitting around the fire making out, like some sort of organised kissing orgy, and half of me was like, ew, and the other half was like, wow, I sure do wish that was me. To be fair, it's probably what I should have expected from our prom after party. I don't go to parties very often. I hadn't been aware this was actually the culture. I retreated from the fire pit and headed towards Hattie Jorgensen's giant country house, holding up my prom dress in one hand so I didn't trip, and dropped Pip a message. Georgia Moore. I could not approach the fire and retrieve the marshmallows because there were people kissing around it. Filipina Quintina. How could you betray me and disappoint me like this, Georgia? Georgia Moore. Do you still love me, or is this the end? When I entered the kitchen and located Pip, she was leaning against a corner with a plastic cup full of wine in one hand and her phone in the other. Her tie was half tucked into her shirt pocket, her burgundy velvet blazer was now unbuttoned, and her short curls were fluffy and loose, no doubt due to all the dancing at prom. You okay? I asked. Might be a tad drunk, she said, her tortoise-shelled glasses slipping down her nose. And also, I do fucking love you. More than marshmallows? How could you ask me to make such a choice? I slung my arm round her shoulders and we leaned back together against the kitchen cupboards. It was almost midnight. Music was thumping from Hattie's living room, and the sound of our classmates chatting and laughing and shouting and screaming resonated from every corner of the building. There were like 3 separate couples making out around the fire, I said. Like, in unison. Kinky, said Pip. I sort of wished I was one of them. She gave me a look. Ew. I just want to kiss someone, I said, which was odd, because I wasn't even drunk. I was driving Pip and Jason home later. We can make out if you want. That's not what I had in mind. Well, Jason's been single for a few months now. I'm sure he'd be up for it. Shut up. I'm serious. I was serious. I really, really wanted to kiss someone. I wanted to feel a little bit of prom night magic. Tommy, then, said Pip, raising an eyebrow and smiling evilly. Maybe it's time to confess. I'd only ever had a crush on one person. His name was Tommy. He was the hot boy of our school year, the one who could actually have been a model if he wanted. He was tall, skinny, and conventionally attractive, in a Timothy Chalamet sort of way, though I didn't really understand why everybody was in love with Timothy Chalamet. I had a theory that a lot of people's celebrity crushes were faked just to fit in. Tommy had been my crush ever since I was in year 7, and a girl had asked me, "Who do you think is the hottest boy at Truham?" She'd shown me a photo on her phone of a group of the most popular year 7 boys at the boys' grammar school over the road, and there was Tommy, right in the middle. I could tell he was the most attractive one. I mean, he had hair like a boy band star and was dressed pretty fashionably, so I pointed and said him, and I guess that was that. Almost 7 years later, I'd never actually talked to Tommy. I never really wanted to, probably because I was shy. He was more of an abstract concept. He was hot, and he was my crush, and nothing was going to happen between us, and I was perfectly fine with that. I snorted at Pip. Obviously not Tommy. Why not? You like him? The thought of actually following through on the crush made me feel extremely nervous. I just shrugged at Pip, and she dropped the discussion. Pip and I started to walk out of the kitchen, arms still slung round each other, and into the hallway of Hattie Jorgensen's fancy country home. People were slumped on the floor in the corridor, in their prom dresses, tuxes, cups, and food scattered around. 2 people were kissing on the stairs. I looked at them for a moment, unsure whether it was disgusting or whether it was the most romantic thing I'd ever seen in my life. Probably the former. You know what I want? Pip said as we stumbled into Hattie's conservatory and collapsed onto a sofa. What? I said. I want someone to spontaneously perform a song to declare their love for me. What song? She gave this some thought. Your song, from Moulin Rouge, she sighed. God, I am sad, gay, and alone. Solid song choice, but not as attainable as a kiss. Pip rolled her eyes. If you want to kiss someone that much, just go talk to Tommy. You've liked him for 7 years. This is your last chance before we go to uni. She might have had a point. If it was going to be anyone, it was going to be Tommy. But the idea filled me with dread. I folded my arms. Maybe I could go kiss a stranger instead. Fuck off. I'm serious. No, you're not. You're not like that. You don't know what I'm like. Yes, I do, said Pip. I know you more than anyone. She was right. About knowing me and about me not being like that, and tonight being my last chance to confess the crush I've had for 7 years, and the last chance to kiss someone while I was still a school kid, when I had the chance to feel the teenage dream excitement and youthful magic that everyone else seemed to have had a little taste of. It was my last chance to feel that. So maybe I would have to bite the bullet and kiss Tommy after all. Romance. I loved romance. Always had. I loved Disney, especially the underappreciated masterpiece that is Princess and the Frog. I loved fan fiction, even fanfics for characters I knew nothing about, but Draco slash Harry or Cora X Asami were comfort reads. I loved thinking about what my own wedding would be like. A barn wedding, with autumn leaves and berries, fairy lights and candles, my dress, lacy and vintage looking, my soon-to-be spouse crying, my family crying, me crying because I'm so happy, just so happy that I found the one. I just loved love. I knew it was soppy, but I wasn't cynic. I was a dreamer, maybe, who liked to yearn and believed in the magic of love. Just like the main guy from Moulin Rouge, who runs away to Paris to write stories about truth, freedom, beauty, and love, even though he should probably be thinking about getting a job so he can actually afford to buy food. Yeah, definitely me. I probably got this from my family. The Wars believed in forever love. My parents were just as in love as now as they were back in 1991 when my mum was a ballet teacher and my dad was in a band. I'm not even joking. They were literally the plot of Avril Lavigne's Skater Boy, but with a happy ending. Both sets of my grandparents were still together. My brother married his girlfriend when he was 22. None of my close relatives had been divorced. Even most of my older cousins had at least partners, if not whole families of their own. I hadn't ever been in a relationship. I hadn't even kissed anyone. Jason kissed Kirishima from my history class on the Duke of Edinburgh expedition and dated a horrible girl called Amy for a few months until he realised she was a knob. Pip kissed Millie from the academy at a house party, and also Nicola from our youth theatre group at the dress rehearsal for Dracula. Most people had a story like that. A silly kiss with someone they sort of had a crush on, or didn't really. And it didn't really necessarily go anywhere, but that was part of being a teenager. Most people aged 18 have kissed someone. Most people aged 18 have at least had one crush, even if it's on a celebrity. At least half of everyone I know have actually had sex, although some of those people are probably lying, or they were just referring to a really terrible hand job or touching a boob. But it didn't bother me, because I knew my time would come. It did for everyone. You'll find someone eventually. That was what everybody said. They were right. Teen romances only worked out in movies, anyway. All I had to do was wait, and my big love story would come. I'd find the one, we would fall in love, and I'd get my happily ever after. Pip, Jason, and me. Georgia has to kiss Tommy, Pip said to Jason as we slumped down next to him on a sofa in Hattie's living room. Jason, who was in the middle of a game of Scrabble on his phone, frowned at me. Can I ask why? Because it's been 7 years, and I think it's time, said Pip. Thoughts? Jason Farley Shaw was our best friend. We were kind of a trio. Pip and I went to the same all-girls grammar school and met Jason through the annual school plays, where they'd always get a few of the boys from the boys' grammar school to join in. Then after a couple of years he joined our school, which was mixed in the sixth form, and joined our youth theatre group too. No matter what production we were put on, whether it was a musical or a play, Jason usually played essentially the same role, a stern, older man. This was mostly because he was tall and broad, but also because, at first glance, he did give off a bit of a strict dad vibe. He'd been a Javet Les Mis Prosperto in The Tempest, and had been the angry father, George Banks, in Mary Poppins. Despite this, Pip and I had quickly learned that underneath his stern exterior, Jason was a very gentle, chilled out dude who seemed to enjoy our company more than anyone else's. With Pip being a harbinger of chaos and my tendency to feel worried and awkward about pretty much everything, Jason's calmness balanced this out perfectly. Jason said, glancing at me. Well, it doesn't really matter what I think about it. I don't know if I want to kiss Tommy, I said. Jason looked satisfied and turned back to Pip. There you go, case closed. You have to be sure about these things. No, come on! Pip squawked and turned face to me. Georgia, I know you're shy, but it's totally normal to be nervous about your crushes. This is literally the final chance you have to confess your feelings. And even if he rejects you, it doesn't matter, because he's going to uni on the other side of the country. I could have pointed out that this meant a relationship could be pretty difficult, should he respond positively, but I didn't. Remember how nervous I was telling Alicia that I liked her? Pip continued. And she was like, sorry I'm straight. And I cried for like 2 months, but look at me now! I'm thriving! She kicked one leg into the air to make her point. This is a no consequence scenario. Jason was looking at me through all of this, like he was trying to suss out how I felt. I don't know, I said. I just don't know how I guess I do like him. Flash of sadness crossed Jason's features, but then it was gone. Well, he said, looking down at his lap, I guess you should just do what you want. Guess I do want to kiss him, I said. I looked around the room, and sure enough, Tommy was there, standing in a small group of people near the doorway. He just far enough so I didn't quite focus on the details or his face. It was just a concept of a person, a blob, generic attractive guy, my 7-year crush. Seeing him so far away and blurry took me right back to being in year 7, pointing at a photo of a boy. I thought that was probably attractive, and I thought maybe I could do this. I could kiss Tommy.